Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Welcome to Vox Novus, the new voice. On her 46th birthday, Jayne Jones landed in the emergency room with sky-high blood pressure and record-high glucose levels and was diagnosed as severely diabetic. She went home from the ER feeling defeated and losing her eyesight for 3 weeks. Fast forward, 6 months later, she was sugar-free, insulin-free, diabetic medicine-free, and her vision was back to 20/20. Jayne tiptoed her way back into her kitchen and reinvented and modified recipes, making them completely sugar-free without losing any taste. Jayne rolled up her sleeves, put back on an apron, and went to work as the no-sugar baker. Her website is nosugarbaker.com, and she joins me this week to share her story and book, The No Sugar Baker, Cookbook for Healthy Living and No Regrets. Please join me in welcoming to Vox Novus Jayne Jones. Welcome, Jayne.
Hey, hi. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Jayne, please share with us your life prior to the events of your 46th birthday.
Life prior to that. Wow. So born, raised, educated in Minnesota. After law school, had no desire to be the regular attorney, instead fell in love with politics. So I went and campaigned on a U.S. Senate race. My horse in the race won. So for the first couple of years, I worked in our constituent services. Then he moved me to D.C., where I was his policy advisor on healthcare, believe it or not.
Wonderful. And what happened after that?
So then I came back and worked back in Minnesota. I also started teaching at Concordia University in St. Paul on public policy and politics. And then I've just been working in a consulting role ever since. But I think you want to get to the meat of the bone here, so to speak. So
yes, I was going to ask you, before I ask you that question, what I was going to ask you is, what was your approach toward food and especially sugar prior to the events of your 46th birthday?
Oh gosh, I probably didn't even think of. I said yesterday to somebody that I always, now looking back at it, maybe I saw food as like a celebration, a reward. Jayne got straight A's. Let's go get an ice cream cone. Jayne had a great piano concert. Let's go get an ice cream cone. Jayne had perfect attendance at Sunday school. Let's go get an ice cream cone. Jayne did this, Jayne did that. Let's celebrate with food. It never was seen to me as nutrition or fuel for your body, which now I definitely see it as. So I think maybe that was it. I mean, I grew up in a very Scandinavian home, obviously, very Minnesota, very Scandinavian roots. And I think it was a upper middle class family where you can't go and have always, the best of the best or freshest ingredients. Parents worked morning, noon, and night in their jobs and in their communities as volunteers and were very active. And I just think that they were just a family trying to make it happen, trying to put dinner on the table, but wasn't thought about as what was happening or what was going on. As far as medically speaking, I was just a normal teenage kid, normal young adult, who never had a physician ever tell me you're diabetic. Never had anybody ever question it until I ended up on my birthday, as you know, and was very sick.
And your 46th birthday and the events that followed changed your life. Please tell us what happened.
Completely. Absolutely. So for a week before my birthday, I thought I had the flu, believe it or not. I'm kind of a energetic go-getter, so to speak. And everybody around me that were closest to me kept saying, it's just because you're run down. You're run down. You got to give your body a break. So everybody thought it was the flu. But it was kind of interesting when you look back at it, Victor, because now I look back constantly at it. And it was like this. I'd wake up and I'd feel fine. Then I'd eat lunch and I'd be sick and sleeping by 2:00 in the afternoon for a major nap or throwing up. Well, obviously now that was the sugar that was doing that to me. So 46th birthday, my husband had enough. He dragged me to the emergency room where I'm like kicking and screaming. My blood sugar was over 600. I didn't even know what that meant.
Oh my
My
goodness.
blood pressure at the time was 289 over 189. And I'll never forget the ER nurse is like, "You're very sick. You're not going anywhere tonight." And I'm like, "No, I feel fine. I didn't want to go in actually." And she's like, "No, no, you're very sick." And then she asked me some questions about, "Has your blood pressure always been high?" I'm like, "Well, no, I've never had this issue before." So the ER doctor ran a bunch of different tests and came back in and asked me. I was out of it and told me I was inches away from having a stroke. Um, and she said, "Is there anybody in your family that's diabetic?" And my husband had to call my parents, who were back in Minnesota at the time, and say, "Is there anybody diabetic in this family?" And believe it or not, both sets of grandparents were diabetic. I had no idea. And I'll never forget it. She had a clipboard in her hand and she kind of threw it down on the bed. She's like, "There you have it. Diabetes tends to skip a generation, and you have a double whammy."
Mm.
So she told me, she's like, "Listen, for the rest of your life, you need to eat lean meats and salads." And she sent me on my merry way. She actually released me that night. That's kind of craziness. I had no glucose meter with me. No metformin at the time was kind of the drug of choice for diabetes. Nothing. Literally said to me, "Eat lean meats and salads," and sent me home. Well, we went marching home. I'm a rule follower, so I took those words by heart. And the next day, I woke up, and the very first thing I always do is I'm a lawyer, right? So I check my cell phone to see if there's anything I missed overnight. And I told my husband, I'm like, "Oh, now of all things, I need to go buy a new cell phone." And he's like, "Huh, okay." And then we always turn the TV on because I watch the current headlines. And I'm like, "And can you believe it? We need to go get a new TV too." And he's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, what's wrong with me?" I'm like, "You can see the TV?" He's like, "Perfectly fine." Well, I lost my eyesight for the next 3 weeks of my life because the glucose level was so high. Like I said, it was in the 600s. Once that happens, your retina tends to swell. I had no idea this was going to happen. And I had no idea when my vision was going to come back to normal, if it was ever going to come back to normal. So basically, the eyesight was gone for about 3 weeks. But here's the good part. 6 months later, after a boatload of doctor's appointments, a boatload of following everything, I went cold turkey on sugar. I literally followed those words to a T. I gave up sugar completely that night, basically. And 6 months later, I was insulin-free, diabetic medicine-free, sugar-free. 60 pounds later, my vision that we just lost was back to 2020.
What did you actually do in addition to the dropping the sugar? What did you do to normalize your blood pressure, return your blood sugar levels to normal, and restore your vision to 2020? That's amazing.
Well, so I don't think I really did anything on the blood pressure. I think that just returned to normal. They did put me on metformin. I'll never forget that first doctor's appointment I went to. I found myself a new general physician, believe it or not. And he told me, he's like, "You need to go on insulin." I'm like, "No, I don't." He's like, "You will. You need to go on insulin. You'll be back here in 30 days and you're going to be on insulin." Well, I proved him wrong because, like I said, I mean, I started working out every single day. So I've kind of figured out that there's no magic formula I can tell you that works for every single person. That's not how life works, right? I can't tell you to go run around the track and never eat sugar again. What I can tell you from my body is what I've learned is that I need to do about 30 to 40 minutes of some sort of aerobic exercise 5 to 6 days a week. If I don't do that, my glucose level will skyrocket again. If I don't do that, I can look at a piece of cheesecake and gain weight. Not even eat it. I can just look at it and something seems to go wrong in my body. So I at that time I was really eating still 3 light meals a day because that's what he told me to do to normalize the glucose level. I will say for the first 3 months of that recovery period, so to speak, I was still a very sick person. I was home. I was extremely exhausted, extremely tired. But everything kind of then flipped a switch. And everybody kept telling me that, like, you just need to get through the holidays. Because think about it, my birthday's in August, right? So then we're kind of creeping up on December. Just get through the holidays. If you can just get through the holidays without any sugar, then you've kind of made it. Well, I got through the holidays. And then I was at the store. I'm a believer in faith. And I said a little prayer to God. I'm like, there's got to be an answer. Because before I got sick, my hobby was baking. But when I was mad at the world after the diagnosis, I threw everything in my kitchen away and told myself, you can never bake again. Because when you Google, and who doesn't Google when you get a diagnosis? Everybody does it. You go to WebMD, and it's just how life is. And the very first thing you get is type 2 diabetes is caused by obesity. So I blame myself. And so basically, I threw everything in my kitchen away. And then I was at the store. I'm like, there's got to be an answer. And I found all natural sweetener, which is that actually is the skin of a grape. And I bought it. I didn't tell anybody, didn't tell my parents, didn't tell my husband. I made a couple recipes and I brought it around my parents. And you know what they did? They started to cry.
Uh,
And you know what? I'm like, oh dear God, is it that bad? These chocolate chip cookies I just made with sugar-free chocolate chips, are they that horrible and that bad? And they're like, no, Jayne, our daughter is finally back. That energy and spirit that we have lost over the last, 3 to 4 months, you're finally back. And that's how it started happening. So I started just making things, kind of experimenting in my kitchen from that point forward.
you literally survived the impossible,
Oh,
overcoming.
that's not.
Oh,
That
oh,
trust me, the story even gets worse when you talk about the impossible. We'll get to that in a second. The
okay.
health story
I
makes
was going to
it
say,
takes a the health story takes a huge turn.
overcoming temporary 3 week blindness, sepsis
Hmm.
shock, and 2 cardiac arrests.
That's the part I'm getting to. Yeah.
Tell
So
us about that.
that was just a year, just over a year and a half ago. So everything was moving along great. Really after that, we got kind of get to the point of, so basically what happened was our daughter came home from college right during COVID, and she's the smart one of the bunch. And she's like, hey, people like what you're doing. So I started posting pictures of stuff I was making on my own personal social media account. And she's like, people like that. You should start a different social media account called No Sugar Baker and post things there. And just to make her happy, I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And I'll start this blog because I like to write, and I'll tell people like what it's like and every day what I've been through, right? Because I was so embarrassed. Like I couldn't even tell you like how embarrassed I was, but I was also frustrated, Victor, because there was nobody out there that was an authentic voice that understood the day-to-day challenges of what it's like to be a diabetic or what it's like to go completely cold turkey on something and understand, like I just said, like I can literally look at a piece of cheesecake and I can like feel it go right to my thighs, so to speak. So released 2 cookbooks, launched a product on QVC, believe it or not, that had 3 completely solid. It's a sugar-free cookie dough. We're going to be in 160, we were in 165 Midwest grocery stores the exact same week that we launched in those grocery stores with the sugar-free frozen cookie dough, because there's no frozen cookie dough out there that's sugar-free. Got sick again. This time I thought it was a version of COVID because I Googled it. And instead, my husband found me collapsed in our shower, and he's like, that's it. He's like, I'm bringing you back into the emergency room. This time you have a choice of an ambulance or I'll drive there. Well, I told him he can drive me in there. And we went, and they found, believe it or not, they found they found a 13 millimeter kidney stone. And it's actually typical for a person to get kidney stones, and that can be caused by medication. It can be caused by diabetes. It can be caused by soda consumption. It can be caused by some different things. They can tell by the color of the kidney stone what it was caused by. And they sent him home saying, it's a very typical routine procedure, right? We'll do it in the morning and she'll be able to go home the next day and life will be grand and you guys just move on and, keep doing what you're doing. She's young and healthy. And what happened at 1 o'clock in the morning, I thank the good Lord that, the patient call buttons you have,
Mm-hmm.
I pressed them and 2 nurses came in and I told them I wasn't feeling very well. Well, there was sepsis underneath the kidney stone.
Oh,
So because they took the pressure off the kidney stone through a tube in the kidney to release the pressure, that sepsis went through my body very, very quickly. And I went into cardiac arrest twice. CPR saved my young little life twice. They said they had a 1% chance of survival twice. They put me on a ventilator. I was in the ICU. And here I am, living proof that this was a year and a half ago that I survived.
you're a person of faith. What do you think the message was?
My time wasn't up yet. My time was my purpose in life wasn't done yet. Yeah, gosh, you got me there because I get a little tear in my eye if you could see me right now. Because that I'm a lawyer. I always thought I would be like something like that's not necessarily in the courtroom, right? But fighting for different things, or even running for public office or governor one day of a state or something like that. I never thought in a million years I would be the voice of what it's like to have to live sugar free, to sling sugar free recipes out there, and that's the purpose. And so every day that's what you fulfill. Every day I hear from people that have very similar stories, not necessarily the story of the sepsis shock. And that's, people don't survive sepsis shock. So every time we tell people, like it's a physician, they're, somebody in the medical community, that they kind of look stunned. And they kind of say, can I ask you questions about, like, do you remember anything? And I actually don't remember anything, but they'll ask, like, do you remember this? Were you in a lot of pain? Or they just almost like they treat you like a guinea pig because people don't survive sepsis shock. And I did. So, I get questions all the time about what it's like to have diabetes, what it's like to live sugar-free. I know oncology cancer patients are told to be sugar-free. I hear from newly freshly crowned patients every single day saying, what do I do? What do I need to do? What do you eat, for crying out loud? Sugar isn't everything.
I will say to you, in all due respect, you talked about possibly running for office. I think your mission, your true mission, which
Mm-hmm.
came through this experience,
Mm-hmm.
serves more people than any politician could.
Oh, bless your heart. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. You're totally right. And so, I like I say all the time, like I'm just the everyday person next door, right? I'm not the skinny little fitness model. They drive me crazy, especially right now because you see them on TV constantly. You see them doing the talking points on TV. They're the fitness models out there who are telling people that, run around the block, don't eat sugar, run around the track, wherever it is. And they don't have a clue what it's like. I believe that my body is genetically different, right? Like I believe that my genetics, obviously the doctor told me, like both sides of my grandparents, I believe that there's genetics plays a role in weight, right? Genetics plays a role in your health. And there's nothing you can do about it, but you can also then take those genetics that you got and refocus on wellness. And so I'll never be a size 4. I'll never be a size 6, for crying out loud, right? I am who I am. I carry a healthy weight, and I'm so unbelievably thankful for every single day.
Absolutely. You wake up in the morning and say, thank you. Thank you for this
Absolutely.
day.
I do every day, and probably a couple times during the day because I get reminders of, if I happen to, I read every single label. I know exactly what I'm putting inside my mouth. But if there's some reason that I happen to not know what something is, or, it happens, right? You know what the very first sign is for me
Mm-hmm.
of getting that sugar?
Mm-hmm.
It's the eyesight. That
Mm-hmm.
right eye starts to go. And what I skipped over is sepsis land. So when you survive sepsis shock, sepsis lands in a portion of your body. It could land in your brain. Thank God it didn't for me. It can land in who knows where, right? I think they're saying that my kidneys, when I was in the ICU, my kidneys were down to less than 10%. So my sepsis landed in that right eye, the same right eye that the vision was lost for 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. And there's your message. There's your message. There's your conveyance of the information.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. You had mentioned your daughter came up with the name, the No Sugar Baker.
Yes.
That's incredible marketing.
Isn't that great? It's a perfect name, I guess. No Sugar Baker. I mean, like when she said it, just kind of rolled off her tongue. And I'm like, well, I think I actually said to her, I'm like, well, that's cute. What a great idea.
And you trademarked it.
Trademarked it, copyrighted, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It's funny. I had a situation many years ago. I was in technical business for many years, but I also had the spiritual side of my life. And one day a friend of mine came to me and said, how do you balance the fact that you have this day job in industrial technology and this other work, this spiritual work that you do? And without even thinking about it, I said, the day job pays my salary. The other work pays my soulary. This word soulary came out of me.
Soul. Mm-hmm.
And my wife said, you gotta trademark that. And a book that I'm working on is going to be called Soulary, The Compensation of Spirit.
Oh, cool.
So yours is now No Sugar Baker, the compensation of spirit, which is really amazing. That's wonderful. What inspired you to write your book and share your story, the No Sugar Baker cookbook for healthy living and no regrets?
Yeah, there's actually 2 cookbooks, right? Mm-hmm. So there's 2 cookbooks. The first one's the No Regrets. Second one is Still Zero Regrets. What happened on that walk I told you about? I kept getting these messages from people saying, I love your recipes. Do you have a cookbook? I love your recipes. Do you have a cookbook? I love your recipes. Do you have a cookbook? Well, one morning I was on my walk, came back, and I told my husband, Chris, he's the hubs in the blog. And I'm like, we're going to do a cookbook. And he's like, oh, all right. You want to do one? I'm like, yeah, I do. But I want to make it a little different too. I actually want to tell the story there. So, I mean, so the story is the first, I don't know if the first cookbook is like 5 pages about like, here's exactly what happened, right? Here's exactly what it's like to get. So I always tell the story of when I went to first, I skipped restaurants for the first probably 6 months. So I didn't know how you order food right at a restaurant, but much sugar-free. And I ordered an omelet at the airport. And then I discovered then I think that you could order an omelet and they'd be fairly safe with it because it should be sugar free. That they take pancake batter and put it in eggs in restaurants for omelets.
Oh,
So that was the pancake batter's full of sugar, right? We'll end up having diarrhea all over the airport bathroom floor
oh,
because you have to run like people don't understand like that sugar now hits my body and you got to figure out how to get rid of it, right? Like so your body like either throws it up, you have diarrhea. It's reality. So I talk about what that is like, right? Like that, just figuring that out, knowing that happens now. Every time if I have to go to a restaurant to order breakfast or brunch or whatever it could be, I have to ask, like, do you put pancake batter in your omelets, for God's sakes? Hope you don't, but if you do, I need to know.
absolutely. I would assume there's a lot of stuff out there like that.
Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot. Oils. Yeah. There's a lot. You just have to, I mean, I've never, before all this, now my husband and my mom, we're all nutritional label readers. We have to be because my life literally depends on it. People don't understand it. It's like, this isn't just like some fab for me. Like, not like, oh, like this week I'm keto. No, this is survival. And, trust me, I never want to lose my eyesight again. I can't have a huge kidney stone that blocks the entire urinary tract ever again because let's face it, cardiac arrest twice. Those stripes don't happen very often.
Absolutely. My guest is Jayne Jones. She's the author of the books The No Sugar Baker, Cookbook for Healthy Living and No Regrets, and Still No Regrets. Jayne, please share with our listeners where they can get your books and find out more about you and your work.
Oh, super easy. You just go to www.nosugarbaker.com. How clever is that?
That's very clever. And I assume your books are available everywhere great books are sold. Is that correct?
Of course, of course.
And we'll be back with more of Jayne after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute?
When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can, making sure they're safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself. At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.
You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for inspired conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Back on Vox Novus, my guest this week is Jayne Jones. She's the author of The No Sugar Baker, 2 versions, Cookbook for Healthy Living and No Regrets, and Still No Regrets. Jayne, you revolutionized sugar-free living by creating a practical guide to embracing health without sacrificing joy. Tell us how.
Oh gosh, a lot of experiments, a lot of, I call my kitchen my new science laboratory because that's exactly what it is. I mean, I've won some recipes and I've lost some recipes, but I had to figure out there had to be a way to go completely sugar-free and still be able to have a good treat that tastes good. Trust me, there's a lot of sugar-free baked cookies out there and they all taste like garbage, right? So they all taste like crap. So I'm like, you know what? There's got to be a way to make some good stuff at home. My tagline from the get-go, when I first wrote my very first blog post, was from my oven to your oven. So I wanted to make sure that everything was good, everything was easy. Like we're not baking with lemongrass or some like foo ingredients that no one has in their pantry. I want to be able to have it go in easy access, affordable, and good stuff. So basically I started experimenting, and listen, I get so annoyed with no sugar added. That's not sugar free. No sugar added is definitely not sugar free. Or people that bake them with honey. They're like, oh, you must use honey or applesauce. Victor, that is sugar. Or they're using maple syrup. That is just fake marketing. No. We are completely sugar free.
What would happen if you ate a piece of fruit?
Oh, well, strawberries and berries have low glycemic levels. So I do eat strawberries or berries in moderation and in portion. And sometimes I have to increase my glucose level now because sometimes it gets too low. So like last week, technically I should be about 100 every day. Be like normal average would be 100. Diabetes is 150. So like 100 is like great numbers. I think the lowest I was last week was in the 70s. So we definitely need to sometimes like watch and monitor that to make sure that it even now creeps up, because it's a tough challenge for me to keep it at that 100 mark.
I have friends who are diabetic, and if their glycemic level goes low, they have a little bit of orange juice. Can you handle orange juice?
I think that'd be too hard. That'd be too high.
Wow.
It would react the other way. Yeah.
Wow. Is there
I haven't had any juice in 4 years.
Wow. That's amazing. What role does mindfulness play in eliminating sugar from our diets?
You mean like what kind of be like? Let me understand what you mean by mindfulness.
Being mindful, being aware of what you're approaching and eating for the average person.
Well, I just think that that's smart, right? I think that knowing that, like I said from the get-go, like I think I used to see food as celebration, maybe scheduled, maybe like your body needs 3 meals a day without even being hungry. Now I see it as fuel for my body, nutrition for my body, right? So I think being mindful of that, what I'm putting through my mouth has to have some purpose of good, right? It has to have a good benefit for the mind. I will say I switched it up a little bit just since August. I started that was after the whole sepsis shock thing. My doctor suggested that I do a high omega diet. And so we've added in a probably fish or salmon. I bet 1 to 2 times a week now has been added we're making sure that I'm getting enough omega. And that has been a game changer. So eggs, avocado, salmon is good. Shrimp is good for high omega. Nuts are good for omega. That's been actually a game changer, even when it comes to productivity or behavioral health. Obviously, your mind or PTSD might kick in when you have unfortunately gone through the ICU, sepsis shock, cardiac arrest a couple times. And you just have to make sure that you're fueling your whole body with the nutrition and nutrients that your body, including your brain, needs to be able to function correctly and properly.
Was there a reason that you were avoiding salmon and fish before?
I was never a big fan of it. I always thought it tasted sort of like a gross, fishy taste to it. So now I absolutely crave it. We're having it tonight. I can't wait. We're having salmon for dinner. Salmon and asparagus.
That's wonderful. And that's healthy. That's very healthy what you're talking about there. Absolutely. What are some of the special no sugar ingredients that you use in your recipes?
Oh gosh. Well, like I said, like I wanted to make sure when I started messing around in the kitchen that everything I did was easy ingredients to use. I always say that my ingredients you can find them in your everyday kitchen, but the directions are easy too. So, I just found this weekend, I can't believe it. I found it actually on Amazon, sugar-free butterscotch baking chips. So for the very first time ever, we went to a Super Bowl party and I was able to bring 7 layer bars because you can use unsweetened coconut flakes. You can use these sugar-free butterscotch chips, sugar-free chocolate chips that taste good. There's many out there. Make sure you get the right brand. And then chopped walnuts, which is good for that omega too. And so basically, and then I use the erythritol sweetener, which is the skin of a grape sweetener. They think those bake really well. I also tend to use almond flour. So putting those all together, and that recipe just posted at nosugarbaker.com. Those 7-layer bars, oh my gosh, were they a treat? That was a dandy one. They're beautiful.
Obviously, artificial sweeteners are not on the table, correct?
No, I don't use artificial sweeteners. I use all natural.
All natural, absolutely.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned almond flour. My wife is completely flour. She can't eat anything made out of flour. She can't eat anything made with dairy.
Gluten.
And she's gluten-free and dairy-free. And she eats almond flour products. Are there any other types of flours that are gluten-free?
Well, you can use coconut flour too. That'd be gluten-free flour. But I think that coconut flour gives a little bit too much of a taste of coconut. So then you should make it like, actually, like I made a chocolate chip cookie using the coconut flour, and it really made it a strong coconut flavor to it too. So I think you just got to watch that a little bit. But no, and listen, I understand that when you bake, sometimes you do need some gluten in those recipes to make things work, because you do need the rise of the ingredient, and that's when you're going to get it through with the all-purpose flours or the cake flours. That's just reality.
Yeah, I know.
But there's been so much innovation with new products out there and new things. I mean, one of the very first things I did was I made a monster cookie, believe it or not. Like I said, I come from the Midwest. A monster cookie's it's kind of like everything underneath the sink kind of cookies. Got chocolate chips, peanut butter, and oats. And I was like, went and thought, oh, peanut butter. Like I always told them, peanut butter is a strong protein. It's all good for you. Well, the first time I made that, I didn't look at the label. Shame on me. And those popular brand peanut butters are full of sugar. Yeah. So I was sicker than a dog. So now I just use, the coarsely grained peanuts. That's only strictly peanuts for peanut butter. That's what I bake with. So I've learned a lot in these last 4 years, let me tell you.
Absolutely. Tell us about the sugar-free chocolate chips.
Oh my gosh, there's so many different brands out there. And you can get some good ones and some bad ones. So they're really popular. They're all over the place. Hershey's got a great brand of them. If I want to say Hershey, I'm not sponsored by any company.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
I just tell it like it is, right? Yeah. So Hershey's got a great sugar-free chocolate chip that I like to bake with. The brand Lily's has some other options too. They have a white chocolate chip that's been really good to use. You make a raspberry white chocolate bundt cake, believe it or not, that's like to die for. So just look at this. And I thought all the big box stores have them. Amazon has them. They're all over the place. Now they're a little spendy when it comes to the dollar, right? But I always say it's cheaper than an ER visit.
Absolutely. And from the standpoint of taste, is there a big difference in the taste between the sugar-free chocolate chip and the old style chocolate chip?
Well, here you go, Victor. I haven't had sugar in 4 years. Mm-hmm. So I'm the last person to judge because I can't even remember what sugar tastes like.
Wow.
Right. So my husband, though, I mean, he'll occasionally, my mom the other day told me that those 7-layer bars, she's like, Jayne, they taste like a 7-layer bar. So, I mean, I don't think there is. I think once in a while you have to be a little particular about the ingredients you use and choose and use. I think I've gotten a couple of times some bags of chocolate chips that were maybe less expensive and they're not as good. So
now, when you use gluten-based flour, do you ever put in anything to cause it to rise?
I have not. There is like that. Oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of it. There's like a gum that kind of helps things like that. I haven't ever had to for the recipes I use when it comes to almond flour, coconut flour. Those tend to be non-rise type items. I will say that if I make a pastry or a bread, I'm definitely using like a bread flour. And that's just, eat in moderation. But obviously like sourdough right now, sourdough is super popular. Sourdough is sugar-free.
And what about yeast? Can you use yeast?
So far, yes. But again, it's in moderation. I'm not sitting down eating an entire loaf.
Is it difficult to find these ingredients, or can you find them at most?
I don't think so. I mean, oh my gosh, absolutely. Like most big boxers, I think it's, listen, 10% of the population is diabetic and another 10% is pre-diabetic. So obviously not everybody's like me where they're completely cold turkey, completely sugar-free, but a lot of the population has to have these items now. So they're more and more popular, they're more and more accessible. And so I think that they're easy to find. I think that's great. It's like I just said, the sugar-free butterscotch chips, never in my life did I ever dream that there's going to be sugar-free butterscotch chips out there to bake with. And lo and behold, they just came out last week and they're fantastic.
And are these ingredients on the regular shelves, or are there special departments in the stores to find them?
Depends on the store. Depends on the store.
What's been your experience with finding things?
Mostly by the other baking aisles. Mm-hmm.
Really? So just
Yep.
is everything all together in the same
Yep.
place?
Usually they kind of like run one row below them, so to speak. But
Wow.
easy to find. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Would you share one or two of your amazing recipes with us?
I mean, like the details, I'll tell you the titles and people can go online and find them. So my favorite is the white chocolate raspberry bundt cake. That is so good. So that's got sugar-free white chocolate pudding mix, sour cream, lots of eggs in that baby. And then the sugar-free white chocolate and then raspberries on top with a cream cheese frosting to it. So that's a great cake. And it's got a swirl of raspberry sugar-free preserves throughout too. That's a dandy. It's a fancy looking cake. And then, gosh, what else do I say? Oh, you know what else I like? I like my peanut butter chocolate chip bacon cookies, because who in the world would ever think the bacon on top of a cookie would be good? But let me tell you, that peanut butter chocolate chip bacon cookie, there's something about that baby that makes me, I always say when you put that bacon and the salt on top of it, that baby dances. And it is such a good cookie because it's so unique.
So here's the question. Can you find bacon that is not sugar cured?
Yes. Oh my gosh, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Very easy, actually.
I never even thought of something like that. That's
Very
amazing.
easy, actually. That was easy. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
How about some main dishes that you love?
Oh gosh. So I make a lot of soups. So one of the very first things I made was a cheeseburger soup. Of course, now you can't use milk. So when you make soup, it's a little tricky. You can't use milk because milk is full of sugar. So I do make the no sugar baker. I think we call it wonderful cheeseburger soup. That's good. I've learned to make lasagna without pasta. That gets a little tricky because of the tomatoes. So there's a couple of pasta sauces out there that are low in sugar. I eat, like I said, I have a almost like Kentucky fried chicken recipe out there. Couple of quiches that are good. You got to survive, right? So you got to figure out how to do it. Pizza that doesn't have a chicken Alfredo pizza, because the Alfredo sauce is sugar-free compared to a tomato sauce. Tomatoes are full of sugar. I could go on and on and on and on and on.
All right. I'm sort of semi-retired. I'm 72 now, and I don't do as much cooking as I used to. I used to cook for everybody. What about marinades and barbecue sauces? I used to use tons of those. What do you have for that?
Yes, I have a couple. So I have a couple that we put out for a Father's Day special on one of the TV stories we did. And we use whiskey. So that's another question I usually get. Like, what do you do about alcohol? Well, I never was a drinker, never drank. And I think why? Because every time if I ever did, like in college or whatever, I would feel miserable after. Well, of course, that was the glucose level probably was going through the roof. I thought it was like, that's what you feel like when you are intoxicated. So there is a whiskey marinade that we use with whiskey with a little bit of mustard, Worcestershire sauce, and brown erythritol added to it. And that's a dandy marinade.
Wonderful. Anything specifically? I used to make a lot of brisket. Anything for brisket?
Oh, that'd be tough. Now there's a couple of new products out there that I've been trying to experiment with a little bit that are sugar-free barbecue sauces that are pre-jarred. Mm-hmm. They're good. It's not my cup of tea. So I've never really craved that to want to experiment to do it more than anything.
One more. Do you have a favorite recipe, an all-time favorite recipe of yours?
Yes. So the No Sugar Baker Holy Smokes pumpkin bars. You know why I call it the Holy Smokes pumpkin bars? Because you eat it and everyone says, "Holy smokes, there's no sugar."
And what's in those?
Oh gosh, that's easy. So pumpkin's a friend of the diabetic, along with cinnamon. The secret in that one is sugar-free breakfast syrup. Brings it all together.
Sugar-free breakfast syrup. I've never heard of that. Mm-hmm. What's
Very
in
popular.
that? What's in it?
I'll tell you the truth. I can't tell you the ingredients, but there's a lot of different brands out there. I always just buy the generic sugar-free breakfast syrups because you're only I think it's 2 tablespoons for the recipe, and it just gives it enough of sweetness that's great. But those sugar-free Holy Smokes pumpkin bars, let me tell you, those are the sugar-free cream cheese frosting. OMG.
And I assume it's when you say a breakfast syrup, it's something like a pancake syrup. Is that correct?
You got it. Yep.
I get it. Wonderful. My guest is Jayne Jones. Her books, The No Sugar Baker, Cookbook for Healthy Living and No Regrets, and Still Zero Regrets. I got to remember that. And we'll be back with more of Jayne after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of Om Times Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On. My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
As veterans, we're no strangers to helping others.
It's what we were taught, trained, and told to do.
It could be for anything. Helping a friend move.
Listening to a fellow veteran for hours, at any hour of the day.
Or just simply making time for people. A neighbor, a loved one, or even a stranger.
We're often the first to help others. There's no question about it.
But we do have one question for the veterans listening.
When was the last time you reached out for help?
Perhaps it's time to do for yourself what you would do for others.
If you or someone you know needs resources, whether it's for stress, finances, employment, or mental health, don't wait. Reach out.
Find more information at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach.
Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Back on Vox Novus, my guest this week is Jayne Jones. We're talking about her The No Sugar Baker, Cookbook for Healthy Living and No Regrets, and the Still No Regrets. Jayne, in doing this work, you empowered special needs communities.
Oh, yeah.
What communities did you work with, and what lessons did you learn leading inclusive baking classes and doing all this nonprofit work?
Oh, yeah. How cool is that question? So basically, my mom managed group homes in northern Minnesota for years. And she came to my husband and I, my gosh, now 12 years ago, and said, I think I have a good idea for you, the two of you. And we're like, what is that? She thinks that we should take individuals with IDD, intellectual disability disability disorders on trips because they all work in stores and communities and they make money. And if they wanted to go on vacation, they have to go with mom and dad. And she's like, what 26-year-old wants to go on a vacation with mom and dad? She's like, I think you and Chris should start an organization that takes individuals on trips. So we did that 12 years ago. We've been all over the country. We've been to Alaska 3 times. We've been to LA, Washington, D.C., Hawaii a couple times with mostly groups of 10 or under young adults. And, when we go on these trips, I've noticed after I got sick that their weight or even their nutrition or what they're eating, sometimes it seems like it's a little bit more not necessarily watchful or not fueling their body, but like a routine, like what they're supposed to do. So I told Chris, I think we should start doing some no sugar cooking lessons, no sugar baking cooking lessons. So once a month, we go and volunteer at organizations that serve individuals with IDD, young adults, kids, young adults, adults, and teach them recipes and, have fun with them. And we have a great time and we've been doing it. And I think it's the highlight of our month, once a month, that we get to go and bake and share in these visions in these treats. And they're so darn proud. We tend to make that no sugar baker white chocolate raspberry bundt cake I just talked about. And they can't wait to show off to their family. Like they want to most of them still live at home. They want to bring pieces home for mom and dad to try what it tastes like to be sugar-free too. So that's been such a joy. We just volunteered this weekend at the Tim Tebow Night to Shine, which is the prom for the special needs community. So we actually recognized a couple of people there from baking classes. That was a lot of fun.
What does it feel like to be of service to others in general, just to be of service and follow the calling of really the golden rule?
Well, I just think that's the way you live your life, right? I don't think it's any different than anybody else. I just think that that's who I was raised to be. I think that's the values that have been ingrained in me. That's my mom always says. I never took my husband's last name, and my parents said that there's being a Jones has a great responsibility. And I think that those are very good words to live by because we shine our faith through our life and what we do. And we don't preach, we don't judge, and we just are who we are. And I think we treat everybody equally.
Service and kindness.
I could care less if you're our goddaughter was born with extra chromosome, so she has Down syndrome. She's a great 4-year-old. If you're little Paris, we call her, or if you're the president of a CEO of a company, I'm going to treat you the exact same way.
Service and kindness.
Yeah, absolutely.
The calling that we should all embrace.
You got it.
You engaged in entrepreneurship against the odds. How did you build a business empire after the life-altering changes you faced? Yeah, you know what? So that's kind of interesting part of the story. So after the 2 cookbooks, believe it or not, this is just crazy. The Minneapolis Star Tribune did the taste section of the Minneapolis Star Tribune is kind of like the sports section for Minnesotans. And they did the whole section on my story. That day that paper came out, I had 2 CEOs email me from 2 grocery store chains in Minnesota. And they both said, "You're right, Jayne. Like sugar, we need to have sugar-free items in our bakery. What a great story. Like you get it." One of them invited me to come sign cookbooks at a store. So we did that during January. And what happened was everybody that came for the cookbook, they were lined outside the door. They came for the cookbook to see me. It was crazy. And they made one of my recipes and everybody's like, "Oh, where do we get that? Where do we get that brownie? The double chocolate, no sugar baker brownie. Where do we get that in the store?" Well, they had to go buy the ingredients to make it, right? So I came back and I told my husband, I'm like, "Why can't they find the no sugar baker chocolate, double chocolate brownie in a store?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Why can't we produce it?" And he's like, So we hired a food research firm. It was all a bunch of General Mills, actually Kellogg executives who were retirees. You know what they told me? Mm-hmm. They told me, they're like, "You have a great following on social media, like huge following on social media. Just use that, make a sugar-free baked cookie and call it good." You know what I told them? I told them to kiss off. And then I told them that there's a ton of sugar-free baked cookies out there and they all taste like crap. And if I'm going to put my name on something, it's actually going to taste good. And I want to know why I can't go to a grocery store and find a sugar-free cookie dough. And they're like, "It'll never happen." Well, we got rid of them, like I said. And we found a manufacturer to make a sugar-free cookie dough, which QVC came a-calling. So we were on QVC in January of 2023.
we launched. They sold three bags of our sugar-free cookie dough, frozen, 3 different types of it, 3 different kinds. The first time I was on, I sold out in 12 hours. The second time I was on, I sold out in an hour. And the third time I was on was in April that year. Guess how long it took me to sell out?
10 minutes.
7.
That's so wonderful. How does that make you feel?
Well, right there, it showed that there's a market. And that's all I wanted to prove, kind of to those retirees that were like, oh, just bake the baked sugar cookie. I wanted to show there's a market for it because I know the market. You know why I know the market, Victor? Because I'm the consumer.
Absolutely.
I'm the consumer. I know what it's like. I know what a consumer wants. And I think that that's always never been lost in this whole story and this whole crazy journey that my life has unfolded to be in, is that no, I know because I live it every single day.
How did it make you feel to become a celebrity with all of your television and magazine appearances?
A celebrity? What are you talking about? Are you kidding
You're
me?
a celebrity.
No,
You're a celebrity.
no, I haven't. No, absolutely not. So I mean,
How did it make you feel to have the opportunity to share your message in all these venues?
Every day I'm thankful for it. Right. So, I mean, like we just did an article for People magazine. We just did a feature in Women's World magazine, and just did Fox News Radio, just did a big little brouhaha too. And just being able to get the message out there. I think I wouldn't say it's empowering, but I would say that it's good to be able to share, because especially right now, I see all these like fitness model types. Like I talked this earlier, nothing drives me more crazy than hearing them go. They're the traditional Richard Simmons type. They go on, they don't have a clue, right? And it's like, no, I just want to be the real deal. I just want you to be like, I understand it completely. Like I get it. I understand it. Don't blame yourself. Like it, you know what? Like I said, I'll never be a size 6 or 8. I could care less what the scale says, but in order to be able to relate to people, I think that's really important. And to be able to get my health back, like think about it. I've gotten now for sure 2 to 3 chances on life, for God's sakes. A lot of people don't get when when they've hit rock bottom. So it's a purpose. I'm telling you, it's a purpose. We thank God every single day. I think my husband just teared up yesterday thinking about, he said, I don't know how we got out of this conversation just yesterday, but we was talking about, he remembers walking into the ICU and seeing me full of all those tubes and machines. I'm wondering.
Absolutely. You mentioned being the real deal. What do you see? What do you see as the importance of authenticity in health, business, and life?
I just think I am authentic. I just think it's really important to be who you are. And, I'm a small town girl. I grew up in northern Minnesota, both working parents that I think my dad was on every single community board he could possibly be on to give back to his community. And I just think that I was raised right. And I think that I believe in hard work. And I think that I believe in goodness, and I believe in giving back. And I just think that I have a little bit of a spirit and a sense of humor to get me through every single day. And there's a purpose. There's a reason. Might not know it at the time, but good will come and good will prevail.
I had a spiritual teacher who used to say that the 11th commandment should be, thou shalt have purpose. And by having purpose in life, not only are you fulfilling what you're meant to do, but you're also being in service to others. And I think that's what
I love that. And I believe that everybody has a purpose, right?
Yep.
I believe our little Paris, little Morgan, who was born with an extra chromosome, she's got a purpose. God darn it. She's the cutest 4-year-old you've ever seen in your entire life. I got a picture of her on Facebook on her social media account right now, because she's the cutest 4-year-old I've ever met in my entire life. And she's got a purpose, and she gives so much love, and she's a gift. She's like a total gift.
Absolutely. What would you like cooks and non-cooks to take away from the No Sugar Baker cookbooks?
Well, I think that it's easy to do. I think that my recipes are easy to follow. I will say that there's some traditional bakeries and bakers out there that don't understand why sugar-free is needed. And I just wish that maybe they would educate themselves or open up or break down those walls or boundaries that they have positioned themselves to think. I mean, there's some people that still walk by at expos and they'll be like, oh, sugar-free, who wants to even try that crap? And it's like, well, maybe you need to learn why some people have to be sugar-free, or before you make some rude, snide comment to, it must not taste any good at all.
You ever think of doing a campaign where you get some of the traditional chefs on television and so on to adapt everything?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I would love it. So we've been kind of messing around with the idea of, so I've done probably over, oh my gosh, maybe 200 TV, radio interviews over the last couple of years. And I do a lot of Facebook Lives. I don't think, can you call it Facebook anymore? I don't think you can call it Facebook, whatever it's called, Meta Live. And we're kind of been pushing around the idea of doing a podcast. So that would be kind of a fun way of podcast doing it, is bringing in like a celebrity type person to bake with me and to be like, hey, try the sugar one, then try the no sugar one, and you tell me which one's better. Kind of like they do like on the Food Network, right? Where my husband watches all the time, where they have the celebrity chef, what's his name, that goes and like does the breakdown, like the novice chef comes and they try to like whose recipe is who, which one. That'd be kind of fun, Victor. I like what you think.
There you go. You can have the No Sugar Baker Cooking Network.
Yes, I'm in.
there you go. There you go. I think it would be a wonderful idea. And I was going to say, what's next for you, Jayne Jones?
Oh gosh, I think we're going to work on that podcast idea. We'll see. We have a couple of we've got a couple fires right now that have been burning in the fire a little bit. So hopefully those are going to pop pretty soon. If they do, you'll be one of the very first to know. I'll reach out to tell you what's going to happen. But we got some good things coming up aboard.
Well, the journey
keeps continuing.
There you go. If you need an announcer, I'd be happy to take part.
Awesome.
There you go. Jayne Jones, her book, The No Sugar Baker, Cookbook for Healthy Living and No Regrets, and Still No Regrets. Jayne, one more time, please share with our listeners where they can get your books and find out more about you.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Just go to www.nosugarbaker.com. You can find out, you can see cute little Paris's picture. You can see over 250 free recipes that are all sugar-free and they're all good.
Jayne, thank you so much for sharing this wisdom with the world, and also for everything that you do and being of service to humanity, because that's what you are. Thank you.
Oh, bless your heart. Have a great day. Appreciate it.
And thank you for joining us on Vox Novus. I'm Victor the Voice Furman. Have a wonderful week.